All right, welcome back to segment two of Science of Kirk presents In the Nest. And what a fight Saturday night. There was so much bark about it, so much talk about it, about the trilogy, the end of the trilogy, the third fight. After a draw, after a Tyson Fury, like really bad beating of Deontay Wilder. But the corner of Deontay Wilder had thrown the towel in, much to his dismay. He fired his corner. He hired Malik Scott, a longtime boxing uh, manager, a great boxing manager. So the rematch was all set at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, and what a fight it was. Believe me, I've been, without exaggerating, probably to about 15 heavyweight championship fights, several of Ali, a lot of Mike Tyson, and was at Ali Frazier, New York for one and three. Didn't go to Manila. I've seen a lot of fights, but this was like something, out of the movies, like with Rocky and Drago. And this was a battle from the first minute of the fight to the eventual knockout or knockdown TKO of Deontay Wilder. It was incredible. Uh, all props. All right, all props to Deontay Wilder. I didn't like the fact that he refused to shake hands with Tyson Fury, showing no sportsmanship, but he was a true warrior. I mean, he gets knocked down in the second round for those of you who didn't see it. And when you get a chance to see it, I'm sure it'll be on Showtime within a couple of weeks. When you get a chance to see it, it was impossible. It looked like if that round, the second round would have gone, or the third round would have gone on for a few more minutes, for another 30 seconds, he's out of it. Then he comes back the next round and almost takes Tyson Fury out of the fight. He beat him up so bad, knocked him down twice. Tyson Fury didn't know which way was up. Maybe not as bad as quite as bad as his 9 count in Vegas the first time, but I have to tell you, it was incredible that Tyson Fury was able to come back after looking like he was out of it, and the same with Deontay Wilder after looking he was out of it. And it went back and forth. Tyson Fury landed probably two-thirds of the blows of the effective punches. But Deontay Wilder, who they say has individually one of the best punches, right hands ever, it was always a threat, but not until the 11th round. I think that Fury was safely ahead on points, and he landed a right to the back of his head, to the side of his head, and it was curtains. Referee jumped in right away, called it a fight, and then the pandemonium opened up in the ring as the celebration began for Tyson Fury. He sang "Walking in Memphis," changed it to "Walking in Vegas." Talked about just how what a great fight it was. He knew it. Admitted that he got the hell beat out of him, and it was a listen. It was a great day for boxing. They haven't had that many, but this was. So by the time they got to the 11th round, I think it would have taken a total knockout by Deontay Wilder to win. But Deontay Wilder, he went out like a champion does, and or an ex-champion does, but he was going full blast. All right, great fight. That's all I can say. Not many of these fights are worth the $70 price tag. I think this one was 79, but this one just might have been. It was unbelievable. So we have turmoil in college football. We're not into the Maryland game yet, but we do have turmoil. And let's get into it. New number one is Georgia. Iowa number two. You have to listen to these top tens. Iowa number two. Oklahoma number three. Cincinnati 52-3 winner over Temple number four. Alabama loses to A&M. To me, they're a pretender. They're still number five. They gave up, was it 48 points, 41 points to A&M. Their defense looked just atrocious, especially when you consider they were the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. Ohio State. Let's talk about this one for a few moments. There was no stopping them yesterday, and I was worried about it. But when we heard three of their top four corners from Maryland were out, that was it. Ohio State rambled on to a 66-17 win. And I give credit to Ryan Day. He pulled out the quarterback. There was no stopping the kid, TJ Stroud. He hit Olave. He hit every receiver he had, I think. Garrett Wilson, of course, Trevion Henderson ran well. Chris Olave, 36 touch yard pass. Another run for Henderson. Oh, no, he actually caught a pass too. Master Teague, the backup running back. Look, Ohio State. You take a look at Maryland right now, and everybody's upset that they got beat so bad. And I've got my guy Talia behind me. Everybody got so upset they got beat so bad, and they did. There's no denial. They got beaten to like a pulp, all right? 66-17. The one thing I was happy about was Talia had a good game. He wound up throwing that one interception for a touchdown. But overall, Talia, looking at my stats here, was 28 for 39, 279 yards, 43-yard touchdown pass to Rakim Jarrett. He was sacked 5 times. He hung in there. He hit Chig on Quanco 5 times for 56 yards. Only targeted Rakim Jarrett once. I only completed one pass to him. He had more targets, but I can't believe they can't get that kid the ball. He's really your best playmaker. But the defense, and I know the corners were out, but it just belied my imagination that play after play, Ohio State would be behind, all right, would be behind the Terps secondary. Where was the safety? I mean, yeah, you get beat once, you get beat twice, but what happens the third time? I couldn't get it. Anyway, so Ohio State has put themselves back in the picture. They're number 6. Now let's look at Maryland. Number 2, Iowa, they lost to pretty badly. Ohio State, 66-17, not much else to say. Guess who's number 7? Michigan. Number 8, Penn State. Number 9, Michigan State. Maryland still has to play these teams. The way the Big Ten is allocated, the teams in the conferences, is just totally ridiculous. And I can't imagine why there's not more balance. But you look at Iowa, the rest of the year, they go to Wisconsin, which is not a big win. If they win, it's one of those taking care of business wins. And then they got barely anybody else on the schedule. So this whole thing is ridiculous. And Maryland has the Big 4, all right? And who do they get? Who's the Big 10 give them as their one of their out-of-conference games? Iowa, number 2 in the nation. So this is no excuse for Maryland. I'm not going to sit here and excuse for them, but it's going to be a hard row to get to the top. All right, let's move on. So we had A&M 41 over Alabama, a field goal at the end of the game to win it that barely went inside the post. Georgia, who looks like a clear number 1, although with Iowa's win over A&M, you could take like pause and say, well, maybe Iowa should be number 1. But they're not. They're number 2, and that's cool. Penn State, come on, James Franklin. You got to win a game like this. You had this game won. Where's your depth at quarterback? I know Clifford got hurt. He's your man. He goes out of the game. You bring in a freshman who's barely played. He averages 2 yards per play, gets nothing done, and Penn State loses. Well, James, if you want to be a national championship team, you've got to have depth. And when your second quarterback was that weak, well, of course, it was a tough spot to put any kid in. But I don't know what you can say. And they lost 23-20 as Ira, who's off. To me, their offense is very mediocre. Spencer Peters threw a couple touchdowns. To his credit, he brought them back, but they are grossly overrated. Then there's the Red River Shootout. What a day in college football. I unfortunately I spent my time watching the Maryland game. I'm not sure why. I was so aggravated when that game was over. But Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout, 55, and Texas 48. The great Heisman Trophy favorite Spencer Rattler was benched by Lincoln Riley. Look for his name on the portal tomorrow. All right. This is not going to go well with his camp that he was benched for a freshman. 55-48. Caleb Williams is the freshman's name. And Notre Dame barely got by. Notre Dame's number 14. They barely got by Virginia Tech on the road, unranked Virginia Tech, 32-29 with another last-second field goal. Michigan, Nebraska. Nebraska has come on. I'll give them credit for that. Scott Frost has that team playing better. But sure enough, they find a way to lose. They just find ways to lose. I think Adrian Martinez fumbled to set up the winning drive and the winning touchdown. I don't get it. Nebraska just can't get over the hump. A loser of 32-29 to Michigan, another Maryland opponent. And then, of course, number 10 now is Michigan State, and they defeated Rutgers 31-13. The Big Ten is where it's at. There's no doubt about it when it comes to football. They have all the horses and all the king's men. So what happens to Maryland now as we go on? And we have a great college football season. We really do. There's no doubt about it. And I think we're finally going to see maybe Cincinnati sneak in there if they remain undefeated. So what happens to Maryland now? Well, in 2 weeks, they play PJ Fleck and Minnesota. So why is this game so important? Game of the year for Maryland. Maryland's got to get to 6 wins. The progression of this team for Loxley is to get to a bowl. They're 4-2. You have Minnesota. You have Indiana on the 30th of October, and you have Rutgers the last game of the year. Now, the way I read this is by October the 30th, 3 weeks from yesterday, Maryland better be celebrating the fact that they're going to a bowl. All right, and I'll tell you why. The prospects do not look great for a win over Penn State or Michigan State. Not saying it can't happen, but they don't look great. So what does that leave the Terps at 4-6? That leaves them 3 games that are winnable. They have to win 2 of them. One is Minnesota. That's a game of 2 weeks. They have to probably beat Indiana at home or Rutgers on the road the last game of the year. I don't like the way that game plays out. If Maryland goes there and they have to win, and who knows how much more they'll be beat up by then, I just don't like the prospect. So my eyes, the season rises and falls on this game against Minnesota in 2 weeks. It is must win. All right, very much so must win. So college football, what a great week. As far as I know, the quarterback from Ferris State, one of the best D2 colleges in the country, Jared Bernhardt, I don't know if he's back yet. He was injured 3 weeks ago. That team remains undefeated, though they had a couple close calls. But I'm on, I watch it with Jarrett's there. And Jarrett has not been playing. But to me, he'll wind up at the next level. Maybe, just maybe. All right. He could wind up on the New England Patriots because of Belichick's love for lacrosse. And speaking of Belichick, wow, a letter to Joey Core, some notes to encourage him for the Red Sox to win. And it's Belichick is a true sports lover. Having his troubles today with Houston. I'm doing this Sunday afternoon, so we don't know how that's going to play out. The American League returns the action today. Will Houston sweep the White Sox? I don't know, but the White Sox certainly came in with a lot better hopes of that. But series is back to Chicago, And we have the Red Sox, of course, playing Tampa. And I will be shocked if the Red Sox can win that series. But this is, of course, on Sunday. I won't have the final. But 4 games have been good. But Lord knows, 4-hour, 9 inning baseball games where the score's 2-1. I'm telling you what, is enough to drive you nuts. The game's got to be speeded up. I'm not sure how or what, but something's got to give. It must happen, and it must happen soon. So with that, we'll end our second break here. We're going to be back in a few minutes to take a look around the NFL here on Science at Kirk presents In the Nest. Back in a few moments.